Hello and welcome to the second season. In this season, we're going to begin with the architectural modeling. But first, let's sum up what we went over in the previous chapter for the structure. And it was modeling the foundation, the beams and columns, the slabs and the project's waffle ceilings, the stairs and ramp structures, the structural ceilings, etc. So by far, we've modeled the main structural elements of a project. And as you can see, here it is. This is the project file that we are working on, and we will be finishing together. So again, the structural modeling is done, and now we want to begin with the modeling of the architectural disciplines. So just like what we said in the structure season, we usually model each discipline of a project in individual files. So that means that we're not going to be modeling the architectural parts inside these structural files, as the correct way to do it is to have individual files for each discipline of a project in Revit. I'm going to give you an example. You see, like for some very big international projects, the discipline groups are all apart from each other, and they might even be worked on from several countries. For example, the structural modeling is done by one country, and the architecturals in another. It's not even doable to model all the disciplines in one single file, and because each discipline is different, then it is common that each one of them is modeled in one individual file, and those files will be transferred between groups, and so the other modeler groups can control and make changes to them. For example, the person modeling the architecturals could link the structurals in their file so that they could assess both of them together and see if there are any interferences that need to be resolved. Then they're going to share their findings with the group. Like they're going to tell the structural team, the structurals will be updated, and then given back to the architectural team, and this process will go on and on. So anyway, all the disciplines of a project should be modeled in individual files. This thing actually applies to some of the bigger projects. For example, let's say that you're modeling a small villa, or just doing a student project, which is smaller in comparison. In such cases, sure, you could model all of your disciplines in one single file, and basically you would be working with the architecturals and structurals only. So you could just use a multidiscipline Revit template and do all of your work into one single file. So it's fine in those cases, but since most of the projects we work on are actually pretty large and will actually be built, then because several teams will be working on each part of the project, then it's important to have each discipline in individual files apart from one another. And eventually all these files will be linked together. Now I'm going to also give you a small explanation about linking files, and we're going to talk more about it later on. So you see, in Revit projects, we usually establish one file as the mother file of the project, which is also known as the container. So for instance, we say that this is a container file, which basically means that it contains all the other disciplines in it, meaning that all the discipline files will eventually be linked into this one. For example, let's say that we consider the architectural file as the container. Therefore, we will be linking all the structural, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing plans into that architectural file. So there's always a file established as the mother file, and it depends on your own project standards which file will be chosen. We're going to talk more about it as we go further. So if you would agree, let's go ahead and start with the architectural. So to begin this part, we're going to need to obviously have our architectural file ready because we're going to be working on a separate file. So let's start with preparing the architectural file. So for this one, we're going to repeat the exact same process that we went through for the structural files, where I'm going to be opening Revit, and now I plan to prepare my architectural file. So I'm going to repeat the same thing I did for the structurals. Basically, I'm just going to be repeating the same thing we did, so it serves as a review for you, but we're going to do it faster this time. So I'm going to go over here and open a multidiscipline metric template. Here we are. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this file. And also this part depends on whether you're working on this project alone or in a team. So let's assume that a team is going to be working on this project, and therefore our file needs to be central. We've said before that we needed a work set to have a central file, so I'm going to go over to the Collaborate tab and click on Work Sets. It's going to make 2 work sets for us. Click OK. And now we just have to wait for the default work sets to be made for us. So here they are, 2 work sets have been made for us. So we're going to click OK, and then we're going to save the file. We're going to have to save this file in a proper directory, as in I'm going to be saving this architectural file, the same folder in which I saved the structural. Let's go to RVT, and you could also have an architectural folder and a structural one. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder, and I'm going to name this one Arc. Very well, we're going to open it, and now we're going to need a name for the file. I'm going to follow the same standard I did for the structural, which is that first I'm going to put the project's name, which is Chemia, followed by dash, and instead of str, I'm going to put arc, short for architecture, and then I'm going to also include the date. So it's going to be 05/24, and again 24 for the year, or you could just put it in any order you like. So this right here is the standard I'm following for naming my project files. Now I'm going to check the options. You can see the central box is checked by default, because this is the first time this file with worksets is going to be saved, and then click Save. So now my file should be saved as a central one. I also recommend doing the same thing we did for the structurals, which is saving central files every day. As in, along with the other people in your team, you would be saving some central files each day, share them with each other, update, and work on the new ones. Okay, so this file's been saved, and now up here I can see that save is off, but synchronize is on. Why is that? It's because this file right here is the main central file. We've said before that we never work on the main central file. We should always have a local from it, and work on the local instead. So I'm going to close this. Then I'm going to go over to Open and reopen this file. Here you can also see that the box for Create New Local is checked, so we're going to have a local from it. So now we can go ahead and open the file. So the file that is opening right now is the local file and is no longer the central one. Do you recall the trick I told you on how you can check? Like, do you remember how you could check to make sure whether your file is central or local? Exactly, you could go up here, and if you could see that both Save and Synchronize are on, that indicates that you're working on a local file. But if Save was disabled and Synchronize was on, then your file is central. But anyway, this file right here is a local one, so I can go ahead and start. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the units. So I'll hit the shortcut UN, then go over here. And just like for the structurals, I'm going to set the units to meters with rounding to decimal places. And I'm going to also check this box to suppress the trailing zeros. We don't need the symbol. So we're going to click OK, and thus we have set up the units. Now while you're at it, you could also check the view range. Like, you could start by drawing a random wall. And for its top constraint, for example, I'm going to put it up to level L2. And now I'm going to draw a wall over here. Okay? There we go. So now we're going to go to Edit Type to assign a cut pattern to this wall and see if the cut pattern will appear or not. If it doesn't, then that means that your wall wasn't cut in this level to begin with. So as you can see, this one doesn't have a cut pattern, so I'm going to choose one for it. For example, this one, and proceed, click OK. Now we can see that the pattern appears, which means that the wall will be cut and that our view range is accurate. So there's nothing wrong with our view range, but in case you realize that your wall wasn't cut, you could just go over here and lower your cut plane offset. That way your wall will be cut and the pattern will appear. Not to mention that the offset depends on your level's elevations. So the view range is usually accurate by default, just like what we had in the structural, but it also depends on your project, which means that sometimes your projects might have some certain standards by which your view range offsets should be adjusted. But usually they are fine by default. So there goes the view range settings, and then the next step we're going to have to create our levels, which we're going to discuss all about in the upcoming video.